Thanks for joining Let It Fly Disc Golf, and in this video we're going to talk about different ways that you can get the nose down and help you throw further. Stay tuned.
Let it fly into the sky, let it glow into the night, let it take flight, just slip away, it'll let you find.
I want to take a second to thank everyone who has subscribed and been watching my videos. I've had a couple friends tell me they've been watching my videos from the very beginning and they haven't been subscribed until recently. If you're one of those type of people, or you feel like you're getting some good information out of these videos, definitely hit subscribe, watch the video all the way to the end, and definitely leave a comment. I really appreciate it. Thanks. So for the first part of the series, I'll link the video. If you haven't watched it, definitely go back and watch it. Watch the entire video, come back, check out this one. It's really important to learn different techniques on how to throw nose down. So there's a lot of different ways that we can utilize different techniques to help throw nose down depending on the reaction that you need out of the disc. In the first video, we talked about pouring the tee. We talked about keeping the wrist above the elbow, whether it's here, 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 wherever. We want to keep that true. We talked about keeping the nose down the entire time, but the most important factor out of all of this is your wrist needs to be flat or a little bit offset like this. But the idea is, if you're pointing the nose down but you're pronated like this, then that's going to cause nose up even if you are pointing the nose down. We want to be supinated where the disc is a little bit off to the side. Now this is really cool because in this next technique is definitely going to help out with certain throwing techniques. You've heard of it as turning the key. What this does is, if you're pronated a little bit, by turning the key allows you to get your hand supinated just enough, or even if it's over supinated, this allows you to at least get the nose down. And you might have to dial it just like anything else, but the idea of it is that it definitely helps. So flipping the disc, right, taking the stamp and pointing it towards the target that you're releasing at, so that this way when you get into the hit, the disc is, you're thinking about throwing like this, which is nose down. So you're trying to imagine showing the stamp towards the camera. That is going to help you get the nose down. So it's still the same turning technique, but now you're thinking of it in a different way. Okay, throw the stamp towards the target. That is going to help. Now, the other thing is your reach back. So as we get to that point where you're like, okay, if you're holding it flat like this, you can probably think about getting to the hit here. Now, I don't like to think of a throw like this, okay? I like to think of it as in a straight line. I think Philo Brathaway talks about this a lot. But the idea is, once you get to this point, we want to make sure that our hand is at least flat, because if it's pronated even a little bit, to the smallest degree, you're probably going to have a hard time throwing nose down, especially if the wind is a headwind and you're throwing nose up. The wind is just going to catch it like that, and then you'll see basically the disc the entire time like this, or you'll see it come out and you'll see it like that. The idea is we want the disc to fly like this. Even if we point it nose down as much as possible, the wind is going to stabilize it, and then it's going to get that push. It's not going to fly. I used to think it's going to fly like this the entire time, okay, or like this. It's not. What's going to end up happening is it's going to lift it and then fly neutral, okay, because at that point there's no way that the air is going to get under the disc and keep lifting it like that. Some setups when you want to try to accomplish this, you can get it into a briefcase hold here. So when you're coming here, you're still pushing the elbow out. You get to that point where you're at the point where the disc, you coiled, the disc is at the point where your foot lands. Then you can transfer, and at this point, this is when we need to start supinating, turning the key, okay? My problem with this is I used to think from here, okay? If I'm throwing that way, I would think, okay, I need to turn here. The idea is We need to get to the hit. We need to turn a lot faster to get to the hit here. Because if you turn and you get to the hit, but you still need more turning here, you're gonna hold on to the disc until the disc rips out of your hand, or it's only gonna get to here, it's not done turning, and then the disc is gonna rip out of your hands nose up. When you do this, you're gonna have to practice turning that wrist early to get to the hit, so that this way it's flat, or even over rotate it so that this way the disc will rip out of your hand. Now what I will tell you is, when you do this for the first time, you might throw it 100 feet into the ground. Then you're gonna go, well, that doesn't work, so let's not do it anymore. You're probably getting successful in rotating the disc, getting the nose down, but the problem is not that you're turning the disc and that's the problem. The problem is that you're not launching it high enough, okay? You're probably getting to here, whereas if you were to launch here with that nose angle, you would have a better opportunity to get the disc to fly. So in this case, that if you are working on throwing like this, right, make sure you aim high. Definitely check out the video here for how to get to the hit properly. It will definitely help out with this as well. Some other changes that you can also consider is, if you feel like you're getting to the hit really well, but you feel like the disc is flipping over so much, maybe this is too much. Maybe that right there is too much. Maybe it needs to be here or here. But the idea is that you're still trying to get that turn here. What I like to think about is, if I'm trying to get to here, then I like to hold that position there even as I bring it in. We can see that the disc is a little turned up. That doesn't mean this is how you should be throwing, so that this way you can get the nose down. I think Josh from Overthrow did a video on how to get rid of wobble, and they haven't came to a consensus of why that happens. For me, it's just, if you can release the disc as flat as possible, it's going to, without any off torque, it's gonna just release from your hand like a flying saucer. I have a friend, Joe, and I still think he still does this, but I would record all my friends when we would play disc golf, and man, he was the only one that as soon as he would get to here, it looked like the disc had no rotation and it was just floating away from him. And that told me that he was able to get the disc super flat. I don't think he was ever like throwing nose down, but I believe that he was throwing at neutral as possible, 0 degrees. He could put a move on a disc like that. So keep on working on that, Joe. But the reason why I don't do this is because I haven't mastered it enough to the point where I can eliminate wobble. I can get the nose down when I do this, okay? Even get into the hit nice and clean, but I'm still over rotating with my hand, which I think causes a lot of wobble. And I'm talking about like 7 to 9 degrees, or 7 to 9 on the Technic scale of wobble. And that's a lot of wobble. The problem with the wobble is that if you have a lot of wobble in your throw, it's going to take a lot of momentum out of the disc to get it to be stabilized. Once it's stable, at that point, it's perfectly fine. Okay, so you're in for a treat. This is something that me and Sal have been working on, only because of the fact that we've tried everything for me to get nose down. Sal throws nose down pretty easily, and we walked around with the tech disc out here at Cobb. But when he would see me throw, he was like, that's nose down. We'd go look at it and be like, nope, that's nose up. And we'll go into detail in another video on this, but this is just a couple key points as far as other ways to help you get nose down. The way me and Sal have been trying to figure this out, from point A to point B to point C, we want to get to point A, which is our reach back, to point C as cleanly as possible. And like I said, in all of my videos, it's not saying that you can't do this. There's some factors that's just like, you can't throw with your wrist up like this, right? This doesn't mean that you can't throw with a arm curled or get into the deep pocket and then fire out this way. There's nothing that says that. Maybe eventually in like 2-3 years from now, people will start saying don't do this, but for now, that's not what I'm talking about. All I'm talking about is if I think from point A to point C here, and as you can see, I'm trying to keep a straight arm from here to here. This does not allow me to change the angle here. So I'm here, I'm here. So if I'm throwing nose down here and I rotate to get to the hit, I'm still throwing nose down. But if I take it here and I'm like, this is nose down, I go here, right? Then I go here, I'm no longer throwing nose down because now I need to think about pouring the tee. Even whenever I get to point C for my release and get to the hit, it feels like I'm pouring the tee as much as possible. But when we look back on video and we see the disc comes in, it goes up and it's no longer pointed with the most amount of maximum downforce for a nose angle, I'm not throwing nose down. But when I throw from thinking point A to point C, that gets me nose down. That's the way I see it in my mind. And sometimes we get to the point where it makes sense. That's how it's supposed to work. But for some reason, when I get into the power pocket, my wrist will come up. People like Calvin Heimberg, who gets the disc up here, Sal used to do this a lot, they can still get the nose down. So the idea of most of this is that we're just trying to stay a little bit more consistent. I also, whenever I think about getting from point A to point C, I'm also still thinking about supinating a little bit, supination, right? Another way you can also think about this is it has to do with your grip. These two fingers right here, you're pulling into your hand, but if you put your fingers, the top of your fingers onto the flight plate and pull them in, and think about trying to push the two fingers through the flight plate, this is gonna have an effect for you to automatically rotate your hand this way because you're pushing up with the fingers like that. I'm not pushing up with the index finger because I barely can touch the flight plate, but I'm really focused on these two middle fingers. Now, they're still in the rim, okay? They're not like only on the rim. They are on the flight plate pushing up like that. The other thing is we want to keep our fingers close together. I used to have this tendency of like pulling them apart, but what that does is it kind of locks my hand into the disc, and now it's in there. Last factor of why, let's say you're doing everything perfect, and I just noticed this because I think in the last video we talked about rotating like this. We also talked about a technique as far as recording yourself and trying to throw like this, right? Imagine pimp slapping somebody with your hand, pow! You're not gonna turn your wrist like this and try to slap them like that, right? You're just gonna keep it flat, pow. One of the factors that can cause this, you're flat here, but you drop this shoulder because you're pulling, then you have to throw like this, right? But if your arm is staying on that trajectory, your hand, even if you're like, this is that part that I was talking about. If you're like this and you're leaned over, you see how the hand itself is adjusting? That means that if I'm here, then I have to adjust my hand here. If I'm back here, then that means I have to adjust my hand here. So this is something that you can play around with, but only once you get it to the point where you can throw it nose down. Or check out this video from Anthem, but they do slow-mo videos. Look at Paul Macbeth's and look at Gannon Bird's shoulders, okay? What you'll notice is that they don't do this, okay? Even if you're not pulling, but yet you're still driving this shoulder down, it's gonna pull this hand up. And if you're not used to keeping this flat, then you're going to end up pronating your hand because you were flat here, but then you ended up tilting this way. That's the reason why sometimes you see people go, right? That's because they're dropping their whole A-frame. We want to stay center here. And if our shoulders are leveled here and I rotate just like this, you can see it's not rotating down. So what I like to imagine is just this shoulder is getting to this, point A to point B. Boom. And I even still have a tendency of moving a little bit like this. Me and Sal talked about this the other day, that when we're talking about getting to the hit, he imagines himself in his mind getting to like this. Even though that looks ridiculous, he's getting the result that he wants, so that this way he's throwing those down, he's getting to the hit, but he has to trick his mind into what his body's actually how it's reacting to it. I felt like I've been doing a lot of good stuff to minimize nose up, but when it came down to it, this was something that was super hard to adjust, and I'm still fighting with it till this day. So it's not like you can perfect everything to 100%. I used to say it a lot in my videos: slow is smooth, smooth is far. If you don't notice, this is a turtle with wings. If you're moving slow enough, you can hear and listen to your body do what it needs to. Being able to listen to your body is definitely going to help out in the long run. Remember, slow is smooth, smooth is far. Other than that, that's pretty much it for this video. I do want to thank everybody who has stuck around, watched my content. If you're not subscribed, I even have some friends out there who have been watching my content from the very beginning and they're not subscribed. Definitely hit that subscribe button. I really do appreciate it. Once we get to probably, I guess, 2,000 subscribers, we'll do another giveaway. But once again, thanks for watching. Other than that, get out in the field, keep up the good work. Let it fly. Peace.
Let it fly into the sky.